The sun had barely risen when the quiet rhythm of life in southern Lebanon began to unfold. Farmers led their goats out to graze. Children prepared for school, and shopkeepers dusted off their counters. The morning breeze carried the familiar scent of olives and damp soil, and for a brief moment, the world felt normal, safe even. But safety in these border towns was always fragile, always hanging by a single thread of hope. In Ida al-Shab, a young mother named Rima stirred a pot of tea while her children played on the balcony. She smiled as they argued over a toy car, their voices bright and innocent. The moment shattered when the house trembled just lightly. So lightly she almost ignored it. Then came the second tremor, stronger, closer, unmistakable. Rima's eyes widened. Before she could call out to her children, a deafening explosion tore through the outskirts of town, shaking the building as if it were made of paper. The balcony rail rattled violently. Rima lunged forward, grabbing her children and pulling them inside, slamming the door behind her. Dust rained from the ceiling, mixing with the smell of smoke that pushed its way through every crack. The attack spread quickly. In Binj Bail, the market square erupted into chaos as the first missile struck a hill just meters away. The blast sent vendors sprawling to the ground, their goods flying through the air. A man selling vegetables dug behind his stall as shards of metal and flying debris rained down. Lena, a shopkeeper who had opened her store early, sprinted outside when she heard the screams. The sight froze her. Overturned carts, broken glass, injured people stumbling in shock. She snapped into action, pulling an unconscious boy from the rubble of a collapsed fruit stand. Her hands shook, but she didn't stop. She carried him inside her shop, pressed cloths against his wounds, and whispered, "Stay awake, Habibi, stay awake." In around, Samer and his grandfather were sitting on a worn carpet, sharing breakfast and listening to a small radio crackling with morning news. The broadcast cut out suddenly, replaced by a static hum. Before they could adjust the dial, the windows pulsed inward from the pressure of a nearby strike. The teacups fell to the floor, shattering. Samer instinctively pushed his grandfather toward the basement. They moved as fast as they could, the old man limping as dust and small stones rained down the stairwell. The ground quivered again, this time so violently that Samer felt like the world itself was splitting apart. Marwahin, already crowded with people displaced from earlier tensions, was thrown into pure panic. Inside the school turn shelter, children played with donated crayons, drawing suns and flowers on scraps of paper. The room exploded into screams when the walls shook violently, plaster cracking like ice breaking on a river. Mothers threw their bodies over their children, shielding them from falling debris. Teachers shouted for everyone to get to the reinforced hallway, their voices trembling with fear but filled with determination. The building groaned under the impact of another nearby strike, and the lights flickered before giving out completely, plunging the room into darkness. Children cried for their parents, their small hands gripping tightly onto whatever familiar touch they could find. Across all four towns, smoke spiraled into the air, turning the sky into a blur of gray and black. Ambulances struggled to navigate broken roads. Volunteers shouted instructions, calling out names, searching rubble with bare hands. The news traveled faster than the smoke. 14 people dead. The number carried silently from home to home, like a shadow settling over every heart. By midday, the destruction was visible everywhere. Crumbled walls, burnt cars, shattered windows, and homes left open like broken shells. With every passing hour, the sound shifted, from the violent crack of explosions to the haunting chorus of grief. Mothers crying out names that would never answer. Children clinging to familiar hands, unsure of what had happened. Men gathering what little remained of their lives from the rubble. Rima stepped outside for the first time since the attack. Her street was unrecognizable, dusty, broken, silent. She held her children close as neighbors emerged one by one, checking on each other, forming small circles of reassurance amid the devastation. A man handed out water bottles. Another carried an elderly woman to a safer home. A teenage boy climbed onto debris to rescue a trapped cat, handing it gently to its crying owner. In Binj Bail, Lena finally let herself breathe. The boy she had saved was stable now, his parents having rushed in with tears streaming down their faces. Lena stepped outside, looking at the destroyed market. She felt her heart sink, not for the broken stalls or shattered windows, but for the people, the memories, the normal life that had been torn apart in minutes. Sammer and his grandfather climbed out of their damaged home, coughing from the dust. The old man placed a trembling hand on his grandson's shoulder and whispered, "We are alive, and if we are alive, we rebuild." Sammer nodded, though his eyes were filled with worry for friends and relatives he still couldn't reach. In Marwahin, the children finally fell silent, exhausted from fear. Volunteers lit small candles in the hallway, offering light where the electricity had failed. A teacher hummed softly to calm them, her voice cracking but steady enough to offer comfort. As night fell over the four towns, the smoke had thinned, but the grief remained heavy. Families gathered outside their homes, sitting on broken steps, sharing blankets, food, stories, and comfort. Lanterns flickered in the dark, casting small circles of light over faces streaked with dust and tears. The air was filled with the quiet murmur of prayers for the dead, for the injured, for the families who had lost everything, for peace, or at least a moment of rest. Season 1 closed on that night, for town scarred but not defeated, shaken but still breathing. The people were grieving, but they were together, and in the middle of the broken streets and shattered walls, the soft glow of lanterns hinted at resilience, at the smallest spark of hope that refused to die.